promised you, and we really do apologise for delaying this. But I have got a lot of points to cover, and thank you to everyone that's sent information in and requested more information. It does appear that the biggest complaint that you've all had is that we haven't given you a sequence of build operations, and this has resulted in one or two problems that you've had. One of the main problems appear to be that, quite obviously, if you drill the holes for the amoeba-shaped bracket for the anti-roll bar, then that does fix your engine bay floor panels in position you can't manoeuvre them. So that's one of the biggest faults that we've had in the instruction that we've given. I'm sincerely sorry for that. The other thing is that things like the manifold have to be fitted before you put the servo and pedal box in. Again, that's caused a slight problem, but it isn't such a big job to tear it off and do that again, so I'm sorry for that. We go on to cover lots of other items. The item that I'll start with is the front suspension, which is quite important, and one or two safety things I want to point out to you, which includes the fitting of the double McPherson struts. Make sure you've got those correct and fitted as we'd like to see them fitted. Okay, cut. That's it. That is a double McPherson strut. You'll see that it has a tapered bush welded at the top of it at an angle. The important thing is that the slope on the bush slopes downward from the side of the car. So it's fitted onto the top arm, it's fitted on with the slope going downwards. It is quite obvious, so that the pin in the ball joint does, it is central. So remember to take off these blue protective caps. We did see it on Kit Car Show, someone's still got those on the car. That goes on there like that, and then there is a nylon locking nut that goes inside. Can you go a little bit closer, Cameron? Now the important thing is that you do get that nylon locking nut on there. It's a little bit difficult, and you will need a wobbly socket or possibly a box spanner. So that goes on there like that, and then you start off by putting the nut on, throw it down there, and then pull the dummy strut off there, and then you've got to attempt to get it started, which often isn't that easy. Right, that has gone in. So remember, you're going to tighten it up now, and you'll need to keep it pulled out because it is very tight down there, and then you're pulling it up tight. You will need some assistance to make sure that the nylon nut is tight. So with the help of something like that, you can get in there and then you can tighten that up. This is something that you will need to check for the MOT, and that's on there, and you can see that we've got it with this. If you come around this side, cameraman, with the slope pointing downwards like that, and that means that this strut is at a more or less upright position. Obviously it moves back and forward like that. So we've now got the stub axle. That's the stub axle that you recognise, the one you've taken from the Ford Sierra. We've just cleaned that up and painted it with red oxide. Now that stub axle does go onto the strut like that. So you just need to cheat a little bit. Obviously you've got that bolt out of the clamp mechanism. Lots of you managed to get it out without snapping it. Those of you who snapped it's had a struggle to get it out. If necessary, put a new bolt in just to make sure. You need to spread that apart a little bit. So with a small chisel, you can just chisel that like that, put it down the tube to spread it apart like a little wedge, then you'll see that that should go onto there easily, like as it does there. Once it's on like that, then you can just simply knock out the chisel and it'll clamp it pretty tight, and then you can just tighten it up with a 19mm spanner. Remember that if you want to get extra height on your suspension, it is in order to move that up and down like that. Remember also, it's recommended that once you have got it at the desired position, then you will put a small nut and bolt through it, so that in the event of a mishap it won't ever come out. So we're now putting the bottom ball joint on. Before we tighten that up, so we've got that on. We're now tightening the top up, so it's tight, it won't slip, like that. So that's on there. Now we've had a lot of phone calls, and please, we're very happy for you to phone up, but do be brief when you ring. If you get to the point very quickly, then I can deal with more people, and I'm quite happy to talk to people on the phone. If I can't help you when you phone, then I'll help you. You'll see that there is a track control arm. You'll see again it's like the top ball joint. It is in the socket, and there's a taper there, which is the same taper as the taper in the bottom of this unit. Now, you need to put the nylon locking nut on like that. And what happens is that many people have got into a panic and they've started to tighten that up, particularly if they haven't used a brand new track control arm, which all you have done because you've got a new one in the kit. They've tightened that up and they've got down as far as the nylon locking mechanism, and the whole thing started to turn. In the case of people who have fitted old units, in the case of lesser kits, they've panicked because it started to turn around and they've assumed that the ball joint is faulty. That isn't the case. All we have to do then is just tap it with a hammer, just like that, so the taper mechanism pulls up into it and it's tight, and then you can tighten that down like that. So that's pretty straightforward, and that goes on like that. Now, just while I'm here, very quickly, I can just go over the sequence of the rest of the bits and pieces on it for you. So that's tightened down like that. The adjustment for your camber is on that top joint, so you'll turn that in and out to get it correct. So obviously it's perhaps not a good idea to do this too tight at this stage. That obviously goes on there for the steering rack. Make sure that you've got that the right way around because they're both handed. Just very quickly to put the other components on, you'll put the disc on. If you've got the new discs, that's pretty straightforward. Look out for the hole in it. That lines up with the hole in the disc, and then the caliper goes on. Pretty straightforward. That goes on the back like that. Again, these are 10mm bolts, 17mm spanner size. You've got to make sure these are tight, and after you've got your kit car on the road, it's a good idea after a couple of 100 miles to go around and check all these are tight. Again, for your routine yearly MOT test, or 3 yearly if you're into the SVA, these bolts do need to be tight. So we've got that like that. That's all complete. Make sure that the disc runs free in there, and then you can just put the front track control arm on. Sorry, the front track rod end. Again, that needs to be just tapped up with a hammer, so that taper mechanism can seat itself, so you get the nut on. Remember, if you're really stuck and it won't do it, you can put a trolley jack underneath there and jack that up to get some weight on it, and that'll seat it. So that's the front suspension assembled. That's pretty straightforward. That's ready now to move on to the next little bit. I'll just point out that there are spacing washers there and there to space out the wishbone if you do want to alter your caster. But we are recommending that you keep this fixed at the caster that we're recommending. Thank you. Right. We're going to look at the fixing of the gearbox into the body. This is a 4-speed gearbox, and you can see that we've disregarded the cross member from the donor vehicle, and we've got the rubber mounted bolted onto the bottom of the gearbox, and we've got the 2 bolts there that the existing bolts that are used. Now that goes into the square on the floor. Now, just as a matter of interest, this is a 4-speed. The 5-speed is just the same, except that that position is changed on the gearbox. It's moved to either forward or backward on the 5-speed, and that's what the difference is. The stick comes out in the same place in regard to the start of the bell housing. Remember, that's the oil bung there. Before you go too far with your build, make sure that's free, because you will need to put oil in it, and that's your speedometer pickup just there. Remember to put the cable on before you put the engine and gearbox into the car. We'll just go through to the workshop and look at an upside-down body now. Zoom in closer so you can see it working. The machine is now cutting out of the main body side. It's all CNC controlled, it works quite easily. We've just bought an extra machine now so we can do extra capacity to cut 2 bodies out at once. One operator can operate both machines. We'll now move towards the underside of the car from it. You see that is the 5-speed gearbox, which is marked, and that is the 4-speed. You see there's 2 sets of holes there, and that is the gearbox cross member. If you use a 4-speed, it's pretty definite that you can just put the gearbox straight in that hole, and that's it. That then goes along there like that to stiffen up the whole thing. You must make sure the gearbox does clear that particular member just there. If you fit the 5-speed, you'll probably find that you have to cut that area out altogether, and then you obviously move up that member further up to the next set of holes. Again, if you've got to trim a little bit off there to make sure the gearbox clears, that's in order. While we're underneath the car like this, you'll know that all of you who've got stainless steel bodies will need to fit the angle section underneath them. That's the inch by inch angle of the long length that you got. You'll cut that into 4, and that goes along there like that and along there, and that fits underneath the seat, and it acts as to strengthen the floor and the seat runners. While we're here, you'll see that there is scallop out of that member there where your diff and your rear subframe mounting fit. Just make sure that none of these points are touching your diff, because they'll resonate through the car. I had to put a car together the other day and did find out that none of those were touching. So it isn't a big job just to move it to one side, just tap it slightly or bend it with a pair of vice grips. While we're underneath the car on rectification, you may also find it advantageous before you start to get too far down the build of your car to just elongate those holes for the 5-speed gearbox. You may find it necessary to get the gearbox a bit better. Okay, cut. greaten this caster, which you may need to do if you've got large tyres, it's fitted on this car just here, then it may need, you will need extra caster. To do that, all it means is you move the lower ball joint forward to give the angle of the imaginary kingpin to be greater. So you'll do that by putting a little bit of stress on the rubber mountings, on the rubber bushes on the lower traction control arm that is in order, and you move the anti-roll bar forward, and that will give you a greater caster. But we are recommending that you keep it fixed as we've done it. Now, the actual, to come to the camber is the amount that the wheels lean in at the top. There is negative camber on an all rolling wheels. You'll see camber if you get square on that wheel is leaning in. Now we are recommending that it is between 1 and 2 degrees negative camber. To check that, you'll need an ordinary domestic spirit level, the kind that you've got in your shed, and you'll simply just put that up alongside on the side of the wheel. But you are at a slight disadvantage because you can't get the actual spirit level onto the wheel because of the tyre. You could take a measurement from the tyre, but as you know, the tyre bellies out more at the bottom than at the top, so you get an inaccurate measurement. So with a little bit of masking tape, you can put the masking tape on your spirit level and a couple of spacers. I've just chosen to use wheel nuts here because they're readily available, but you could use little blocks, anything about the size of a sugar cube. Sugar cubes are a lot more convenient than this bags of sugar. Right, so we've got a nut on just there to space it out, and then obviously an identical nut at the top of the wheel. So, and then you'll put that up against the wheel like that, and you'll see that with that pressed up like that, it should go in further at the top. And the difference from the horizontal needs to be around about ½ inch. But as long as you've got some, that's all that matters. That is for the camber. Now, the other main measurement is the towing, and that is how much the two wheels point inwards towards an imaginary point. So if you had a point down there in the next street, if you put a straight edge against your wheels like that, this would meet several yards down there. To do that, you do need a plank of wood. You can put down a builder's batten down the side of the car like that, and that way you can gauge how much you can measure again off the wheel so that the wheels are towing in. Again, about 1 degree is correct for that. While we're on the subject of this particular car, this is a V8 car which we've just built. We built it from an ordinary Series 3 and we've done some modifications to the transmission tunnel, etc. We've chosen for experimental purposes only to fit these 15-inch, would you see these wheels please, Cameron? These 15-inch performance wheels, the 15-inch by, I think the 7J, and we're running them on Yokohama tyres, 205 60/15 tyres. Now, we're not recommending this, we're only experimenting at this stage. Remember, we're asking you to fit only 13 and 14-inch wheels to your roll boards, but we'll let you know in due course the actual result from the tests. I'll just show you underneath the bonnet because I know you're all interested. We're uncertain what form we're going to market this V8. We don't think it'll be an add-on to 3As, it will be a proper kit that we're doing. You see, that's your Rover engine you all recognise, and you can see that it fits under the bonnet nicely with quite a large air filter. So you see it fits in there quite neat. It uses the ordinary 2-litre Sierra diff. and the pedals, etc., are under this quite nice cover. And it does fit in well. We've still got to evaluate the whole car yet, but we're certain that it will be a production model in the future, although we're also certain that it won't be cheap, it will be quite expensive. But the main thing is that you can get it underneath the bonnet, unlike our competitors' cars. There are no power bulges, and it does fit well, even with the Holley carburettor and the operator manifold. The other points of interest on this car are the wide rear wings we've fitted to it to accommodate the larger wheels. They work quite well. And back onto the front suspension, you can see that we've done this car for the first time slightly different, and it's worked out quite well, is that it was recommended that the wing stay was fastened onto the clamp on the suspension. On this car, the person built it, was quite a good idea. He suggested we fasten the wing stay through that nut and bolt that went in to secure the dummy McPherson strut. So that resulted in a lot more rigid wing stay. So you really need two in it, in through the wall of that front clamp. We've got the front crumple zone bumper on there with a nice gap all the way around it like that. We've had quite a few phone calls regarding the wiring room. Now, it appears that many of you have gone on quite well with this, and I am surprised by the limited number of inquiries that we've had with the wiring room. It does seem to be quite successful. However, I'm not going to cover the wiring room at all, Hartley, on this video, because the problems that people appear to have revolve around the fact that there's things slightly different on the lube of their particular car. Generally, the inquiries revolve around the thick wire, the thick red wire that goes to the rear of the car that people are confused about. That was put in by especially in the event of there being an electric petrol pump fitted to the car. So that is what the thick wire is for, if you're going to use an electric petrol pump as in the Rover car. The other thing is that there is a wire marked isolator. That is the isolator switch for the gearbox for the reversing lights. And you'll find there is one wire at the rear of the loom that isn't marked, and that is for the wiring. That is for the reversing lamps. Obviously, you've got to take a live feed to that to pick one up, so that you can power up the reversing lamp circuit. The other slight complication is that you do need to piggyback the wires from one side of the car to the other at the rear. That means that you've got to put a double connection on with two wires in one side and one wire out the other side, so that the lights can, from one side of the car, can pick up from the other side. That's quite obvious. But generally speaking, with the wiring, if you've got any problems at all with that, if you drop your problem on a piece of paper, and if we can't answer it here, we'll forward it to the people who manufacture the wiring and they'll be able to help you. We've been asked about also the position, the route for the wiring loom. Well, it's always been left with all Robin Hoods that the route for the brake pipes and for the wiring loom has been left down to the individual. Both these components are supplied or intended to be line up so that different routes can be taken. We normally put the brake pipes and the wiring loom down the box section on the driver's side of the car, leaving the other passenger side box section for the fuel pipes. So that is only a suggestion. We're saying now that use the box section down the off side of the car, the driver's side of the car, for the wiring loom and the brake pipes. You could put them down the transmission tunnel if you wished, but it's easier to put them down the letterbox section, as it's not difficult just to wedge small pieces of timber in there, just to hold it up at the top of the wire loom, or even C-flex them in. But that is something that will leave to you the route. Now, before I forget, quite important, I've already mentioned, and I've apologised for the fact that some people initially, while the car was upside down, decided to fit the anti-roll bar Amiga-shaped brackets and drilled through the floor and then through the engine bays, bolted them up, only to find that the engine bay floor pans weren't then movable. So remember, they're supposed to move around in the engine bay until you get the engine in the correct position, and then when they are in the correct position, then you bolt them down. You bolt them down through the Amiga-shaped brackets for the anti-roll bar, and also you've got to drill holes through the front cross member. That's the cross member that the shock absorbers go into. So you need to drill several holes through that to bolt them down at the front. But most important is the holes at the rear of the fixing for these sledges, these engine bay floor panels. Now, you'll find if you look inside the body that, in fact, we can do that, Andrew. If we look at this body just here now, we can see here, this is the car we have the scuttle off, that there are a row of holes there, and you can see the end of the engine bay floor pan peeking through there. So once you've got that in the right position, then you've got to drill through those and bolt that down firmly. So that is quite an important point, something that you mustn't miss. The slight problem that we found, that if I identify it, that it may help you, that in the moving around of the engine to get it in the correct position, we found that is a little bit long. So in this car that I put together on Saturday, when I put it all together, I did find that the engine went in okay, but that was obviously tight up there. That needs to be really relieved by ½ an inch. That's why I suggested earlier on in the video that you did file out that gearbox cross member. That you filed out the gearbox mounted under the floor. But if you find you've got problems, then that is an area that you'll have to address just there. While I'm here, you'll see that this utilises the engine mount from the later car. These are quite easy to fit, they're quite a good mounting, and these mountings do go on there like that. Now, we have suggested if you haven't got these mountings, if you've got the later type, the single pin fitting, that it's better to go out and buy these. However, if you don't want to spend the money on those and you're building the car on a budget, or you live in Orkney or something like that where you haven't got access to get them, then it is suggested that you can do this modification. And you'll see that is an engine mount in there. But we've made a plate for it like that. Pretty straightforward plate, and we've cut out an extra piece out of there. So what happens is that the wine glass shaped mounting that you've got on the later cars with a one pin out of it, it goes in there, and the wasted part of it goes there, that goes on there, that comes round, and that holds a mounting. So that does work quite well, and it is an option that you've got. So that's not difficult to make. Two people have phoned in and complained that there wasn't any information given towards fitting the radiator. It's one of these things that I've assumed it's so obvious and so easy to do that you didn't need any information, but I'll give it you now. That is a radiator. Many of you have complained that there isn't any information on fitting the radiator. We've omitted that from the video, because we've assumed that that's the kind of thing you'd find easy to do and it's common sense. However, I'll go over it with you now. The radiator is supplied in the kit is a Ford Cortina item, a quality item manufactured by Cert Radiators with a plastic tank top and bottom. Be careful with it because it is very lightweight and very fragile. Don't damage it, don't throw it about, don't shove screwdrivers through it, etc. The radiator fits in a natural position against the back of the front cross member, use a couple of bits of snap-on edging or split hose pipe over the two uprights of the engine tray. Remember that the one on the driver's passenger side is meant to be angled in like that to clear the sump. They snap on there, and then the radiator just sits in like that on top of it, as low down as it'll go. You then want to mark through the holes, the second lot of holes, third lot of holes down, mark round there, lift it out and drill the hole there and drill the hole there. Put the radiator back in like that. Okay, and then with 6mm bolts and the washer, we pop that on there like that. We put that bolt in there, and then we put that bolt in that side. And then we want two more fixings towards the bottom of the cross member. So we drill a hole down. You have to drill through the radiator this time, through the radiator flange that side, and put the nut and bolt in. And then on the other side, the same. And that is all we need. That's all that's required to put your radiator in. Just 4 6mm some bolts like that. Put that one back in, and that holds it quite firm. You then, as it's a Ford Cortina Mark V radiator, ideally, if you've got funds, you could do with buying some Mark V radiator hoses to connect it up. If you don't want to buy new hoses, you can reroute the ones from the donor vehicle. Remember, it's from a Cortina, it doesn't use an expansion tank, so you do need to connect the overflow pipe up out the way, out the bottom of the car, so if it does bump, it won't squirt dirty water, rusty water all over your engine. But there's nothing to stop you putting an overflow bottle on there if you wish. That's the radiator. While I'm on the body just here, if you come around this side, cameraman, the body on the Series 3 and the 3A is intended to be shaped, and you'll see that, as you all know, it is tapered, it is bell-shaped, and it does come out at the bottom. If we look inside, we can see that there is some shape, a curved shape, to these foot panels. Now, it's intended that the side of the body should be curved. Now, if you can prise that out slightly and just put some slight packing material in there, sometimes there's more room on one side than the other, just so that the side of the body is curved. And often you'll find that the side of the body is a bit dingy. Now this one is a good example. There's quite a bad ding in that. But what you'll do, you'll pop these out. So if you manage to make that curve just there by just packing a little bit of timber or some rubber in there to push the side out so it's slightly curved, then these dings you can actually push out like that. And a nice curve shape follows it all the way down. You may need, if you just come in here, cameraman, you may need just to pack out with a piece of rubber against, or a rubber block, or a little wooden block even, from the engine mounting, just in there, to stop this dinging out again. And you should get this nice curved shape down the side. Obviously, if you fit in long wings, then the long wings themselves do stiffen up the side, but obviously it's more critical with the cycle wings. Just in case it was omitted from the other videos, that is a long wing bracket. That bolts, you take that nut off that suspension spindle, and that bolts on there like that, and that quite firmly fixes the wing bracket there. You will need an additional bolt further up to stop it moving. And then don't forget to put on the box section other wing support that goes in front of the hole just there. We've had one or two inquiries from Series 3 builders regarding the rear wings. I did cover this, but I'll go over it again. This is a Series 3 wing. Remember, you've got to trim away that top section along the top there, as we've shown, that's already marked on your wing. So that reduces that top edge to around about 1 inch. Remember that the point there is a little bit smaller than shown on the video. It's because these are a new wing, and it is different. So you will see also there is an area to be trimmed off the front of the wing, and in most cases I think we did mark it for you, or we showed it. So this is a wedge-shaped piece that is cut off with a jigsaw. It hasn't got to be that accurate because the area is covered up with a stone guard eventually. So to carry on with fitting the wing, we get the wing like this, and you'll notice that there are 3 holes already drilled in the body, 1, 2, 3. Just go through them with a drill to clean them out to make sure that the 6mm bolts do go through them, and drill 1 more hole about 1.25 inches from the top, the same distance as the back of the other 3. With those holes there, we then offer this rear wing up to the back of the car, and we ensure that it's flush with the back panel like that, and level with the bottom. It's more important to level with the bottom than level with the top. So with that in position like that, then you'll get a small boy to go underneath the car and scribe through the holes so you know where to drill them, or you can hold them like that and get a colleague to go underneath and just drill straight through. So with the holes marked, we then drill the holes in the wing 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we bolt the wing on using the 6mm bolts that we've recommended. So use washers behind them. We'll start off with the bottom one, we put that in there like that. We pop that through the hole like that, and we just do the next one so it holds in position. So we pop that through there. Like that. And 1 more. Top. Put that one through the other way, just a little bit easier. Okay, with the back of the wing fixed, so it's flush down the back, we then come to the front, and you do just have to just force it a little bit, force it a little bit in so it's like that. So with a clamp like this, or a G-clamp or something similar, we then clamp that up. Like so. Like so. And then we'll drill through there like that, and then we can at least put a self-tapping screw in there to secure it. It's really a minimum temporary fixing you can put there. Once you've got that self-tapping screw in there, then you can probably drill alongside it and put a nice 8mm bolt further along. When we had the axle on this the other day, we did finish up with the wing nice and square and the wheel with an equal gap both sides. But remember that if the gap's different at the front to the back, then you can regulate that by moving this further in and out. As you see, if I pull this out, that comes this way. If I push it in, it goes further back. So what happens is, in any event, you do have to make up a bracket behind that to put an angle section behind there, and then you put your stone guard on the front. So even if that gap's not quite right, you can manoeuvre the wing like that to get it backward and forward like that. We move around the other side. That's the end of that. We move around the other side, so that we take left, and we come to fit the bars on for the rear shock absorber. That's the angle sections. Right, cut. Yeah. These are the angle section bars, and you'll either have the plain ones if you've got one type of shock absorber, or if you've got the kind with a 1/2-inch bolt in the bottom, then you'll have them with these boxes welded on them. You do need to drill the boxes out, and the boxes want to be drilled out with a 5/8 hole, as we've just done there in the centre of the boxes. So these bolt on the side of the car, and for this operation we've chosen to use 6mm bolts, only temporarily. So it's quite easy. We've drilled through there, bolted that on there, and we've got another one just here, one there, sorry, one just here, no, one at the back, just there like that. So we've managed to fit that on temporarily. Once you're certain that it's correct, then you can drill through all these with 8mm and bolt with 8mm or even 10mm. The actual position of the box section is directly underneath the pickup for the shock absorber. So the shock absorber must be, the stem of the shock absorber must be at 90 degrees from that box, so you can move the box backward and forward. If when you fitted this you find out you've got a discrepancy in between the box and the body, sorry, the angle section of the body, don't worry about that, because these bolts will pull it up. But it's important that you do bolt this on square onto the top of the body section. Remember that not to bolt these on firmly until you've got the wing position right, because if you do find you've got a discrepancy in your wings and you can't adjust the wings, the wheels in the wing hole as I've just suggested, then it is possible to undo 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold the 4 bolts, hold the back end on, and manoeuvre the back end complete with the wings around to get your wings and wheels to fit correctly. And the shock absorber bars fitted correctly. Then you can fit the rollover bar. This is pretty straightforward, but you can't fit this till you make sure you've got the wings fitting correctly. That goes in that hole there, and you may just have to just sprag it a little bit to get it in there like that. And then as far as you can go with these sitting on the back. Incidentally, if you've got the car level, if it's level on the bottom, you stand square on, and you see, as in this case, that if you put the bar vertically, that you've got a gap there. it means you've got to cut that much off the legs of your rollover bar to get the bar to fit correctly. So that's that in the hole, and you do need now to drill some holes to hold it on with the U-shaped brackets. If you could just come across here, cameraman, and lean inside this X mode, we'll be able to see the brackets. You can see we've drilled through the angle section just there, and then can we see the second clamp down there with a further clamp at the bottom. So if we just lean inside the car around the other side, then you can see, you can lean in there and show that. And point back to me. And that means then that those U-shaped brackets are going over the roll bar, through the luggage compartment floor, through the body side, through the angle bracket, stiffening up the whole rear end of the car. Obviously you'll drill through these down to the body back and bolt it up on there as well. Okay, cut. Now come to the pedals. We've had one or two queries about the pedals, particularly the accelerator pedal, as we haven't given any information on that. Again, I assume that was quite obvious, but I'll cover that. The pedals, we have found that if you look at the pedals very carefully, you can see that it is possible to take the main spindle from the pedals, remove it by taking the clips off them, and there is nylon spacers. You can take those nylon spacers out, and it means that you can then fit you can space the pedals out more suitably to suit yourself. The fitting of the pedals, we think it's quite straightforward. Through there. So that angle is prefixed there. The hole here is for the wiring loom to go through, incidentally, from the main part of the body as it goes down through that and along the side. You see we've bent up that bracket there for the accelerator pedal, and the accelerator pedal as it comes from the Ford Sierra comes with a bracket already on it like that. Remember when you're sitting in your Robin Hood, that pedal, as in all of the pedals, must fall on the ball of your foot. So if you measure from the back of your heel to the ball of your foot, depending on what size shoes you've got, it's usually around about 9 to 10 inches. So in theory, that needs to come 9 or 10 inches from the floor. So this can fit anywhere really. So we'd say that if you drill a small hole on that bracket there, you can mount it on that bracket like that, then make a bracket something like that, go in behind it to stiffen it up like that. So, and then that can be moved up and down to the side, however you wish for that to fit. The pedal box cover, if you just bear with me, I'll just attempt to put the scuttle on this car. This is slightly different to your cars because this is a 3A. It's more or less the same fitting for the remember that it may be necessary once you've taken this off just to file out these holes the studs go on to, just to give you a little bit more chance, make it a little bit simpler, because you will be taking it on and off 2 or 3 times if you're in the fitting the building Robin Hood. So that's it very roughly on, with the exception of one stub bolt just there, which will just, yeah, that's gone now. So that's a screw on, and then you can see with your pedal box the improvement we've made. We have cut a hole in the side that you could do as well, cut a hole in the side of that, because that helps you get in to fiddle about. You need to, once you've bolted that down firmly, we've just put it on one bolt. Obviously you're going to use 8 or 10 mil bolts to bolt it down, 10 mil in your case I think. Then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 bolts that bolt that onto the side rail and to the scuttle, to top, the firewall top panel. Once that's on secure there, you do need to give it some extra strength. And you see there's a main fixing hole through the top. Now you do need to be drilling through the top of that box and bolting that up. The slight complication is that that is at an angle. If you put a nut and bolt through it and pull it up tight, then you'd get a big ding in the top of your box. So there's several things you can do. Probably most of you will want to make a little wedge out of hardwood or plastic or nylon, something like that. So put a little wedge on top of that so that when it's bolted up it doesn't pull it up tight. What we've done, we've cheated a little bit really. We've put a bit of masking tape on top, and we've put a big dollop of body filler on top of that, and then we've not put a lot of hardener in, so it takes a long time to go off, and then we've plonked the pedal box cover on top of that, and then that has acted as a wedge. Then we've just drilled through the top. Obviously to do that you've got to be able to measure exactly where the hole comes before you drill blindly. So the pedal box cover goes on top of that, like that. The cutout there is for the clutch cable, and that fits on. You might need just to bend it a little bit. Basically, that's more or less it. There's slight gaps here and there, but when you pull all that up with nuts and bolts, it does look quite neat. And with this hole that you're going to cut in the side, you can get in to mess about with your automatic clutch adjuster. That's a pain really, and then to get in to put the nut and bolt in that bolt, the nut and bolt through the top of the box to stiffen it all up. It always wants to be detachable because you need to get in there for various things. Now, just to come back to the clutch mechanism, I've never liked these self-adjusting clutches, but they do work quite well. Remember to, if you do pull the pedal towards you, and it slackens off the clutch adjuster, and it means you've got to do it again. You can get a conversion. I think Parkco do it for a non-automatic cable, so that is an option that you've got. Now we do get a lot of questions, a lot of phone calls from people who are struggling with a clutch and can't get a clutch on the car. Quite simply, this is due to 2 things. One is that they're using the original clutch cable, which is stretched, and the second thing is that often they don't understand the mechanism, the automatic adjuster, and they do need to swat up on that. But it's covered quite well in the Haynes manual. If you look at it yourself, you'll see how it works, and you may need a new one. It could be quite worn. The third point is that often we need to cheat a little bit and put a spacer in. So you may find when you built your Robin Hood, the distance between the pedal and the stop is less than on the original vehicle. So you need to not so much shorten the inner cable, but lengthen the outer cable. And this is done quite carefully, quite easily, sorry. Follow me to this car across here. I'll show you. No, this is standard. You can see that's got the standard nylon bush just there. That's standard. I know on the X-Mo here we had to cheat. So I'll show you on this. Terrible all this cheating, isn't it? No, it isn't on that one either. We will go out in a few moments to the Series 3 that's outside, and I'll show you on there about the adjuster. The Series 3 that's out there, and also the Series 3 body, the levers out there as well. Now, lots of you have written in and spoken on the phone with regards to Carl, who featured on the last video. Now, unfortunately, Carl's no longer with us. He was headhunted by Toyota up the road, and now he's left us. So, there is Sarah, who's a daughter of one of the builders. I think she was particularly fond of Carl, and she's asked about him several times. I'm sorry, Sarah, that Carl's now gone. The other thing, a little bit of a plug and advertisement while we're here, in the few minutes we've got before lunch, is that we have noticed that several people that build Robin Hoods build one and sell one and build another and sell another. They do appear to enjoy building Robin Hoods. And we've got 2 or 3 people now who's actually successfully finished the Series 3 and onto the second car. I think Mr. Allbutt, he's finished his and he's gone to the Rons on it this weekend actually. He's away in it in his Series 3. Let's hope he gets on all right. And his father's just been along the other day taking delivery of another Series 3 for him to carry on building. Also Swede Elko from Sweden who had 5 from us Series 3s at the same time as you people. They're getting on well with their cars and they're subjecting them to the various tests necessary in Sweden. But the point I'm making is that those of you who have already had a Series 3 from us and who have experienced building it and who'd like another one, then if you come back to me quickly, we have got 2 or 3 slight reject cars here that we can let you have at a discounted price. That is discounted from the current price, which is now 2,650, I think, plus that. So anybody who'd like a car, a kit, we've got 2 or 3 here that we will let you have at a discounted price as your already existing Robin Hood builders. The other package we've got is an interesting package, which is a Friar Tuck body. Now we didn't do many of these, and we've just got one left, and it's a Series 2, not a Series 3. There are various points on it, but we would upgrade it to the Series 3 spec. The only thing that's wrong with that is that we have had it at a couple of exhibitions and it hasn't got any plastic coating on it. But it is quite a historic vehicle really, in so much that it is intended to take people who are 6'6" tall quite successfully. So anybody there likes that, if they contact me relatively quickly, then they can secure that from us. The other thing is that we've had many phone calls, people wanting heat protectors, and we've recently just got tooled up for heat protectors, and we should be able to do these pretty soon. We've actually manufactured them especially for the V8 car that you've had a glimpse of, and we've managed to incorporate the V8 logo into the heat protector. So just a few weeks now, then they will be available, and hopefully we can offer those initially at a discounted price, so we can pass on some kind of bulk saving benefit to the builders of the Series 3A. While I'm sat here as well, I'd like to just say thank you for everyone who's written in with constructive criticism. Pete Duffel, he sent a nice drawing of a suggestion for a bush for the steering shaft. Now, 1 or 2 of you did get these bushes in your kit, which weren't really necessary. But if you did get a special bracket for the bush for the steering shaft, then you don't need to use it. Remember that you may need just to alter the foot panel where the steering shaft goes through to ensure that this panel is at 90 degrees to the shaft itself, so that the bush works properly. And the other most important thing, we did find this out by trial and error, that there is originally on the Sierra a spring clip that slides down that triangular shaft, and that spring clip will hold the bush together. If you haven't got this spring clip, then the bush will come apart as you turn the steering wheel. So make sure you've got that spring clip. If you haven't got it, if you lost it, as I fear lots of you have done, then I think you would get away with putting some Superflex or quality silico glue sealer on the shaft to stop the bush coming apart and slipping up the column. Thank you. We're looking at the Series 3 now. This was the adjustment, the piece of tube that we had to put in to extend the outer cable on the clutch. Somebody laid underneath the car and pulled the clutch lever on the gearbox, and then that piece of tube was slipped over the top of the cable. We cut an incision in the bottom so it would slipped over the top. There's something wrong with this clutch mechanism because we just recently had to put 3 more washers in there to pack it out. Just while we're underneath the bonnet, you'll see we've made the simple fire trap for the carburettor just there. You'll see that that is the position of the coil and the electrical box just there. Those have been pre-cut in the side of the body for you, so you're not struggling to drill them. There's a hole just there, been pre-cut for the speedometer to go through. That's the route it goes, speedometer cable to go through, that's the route it goes on. Make sure it clears past the manifold, nothing touches the manifold, that's the speedo cable. All these brake pipes should be bent carefully so they miss the manifold as well. The battery, you can see we've just managed to fit the battery in just there, just alongside the heater. It just fits in that position there. And the heater unit, you can see the blower unit just there, it fits in. We will go inside the factory again and we'll go over fitting the heater. You'll see cosmetically we put a little strip on the back just to tidy it up along there. We've put a little strip of leather cloth on top of the scuttle there and on the bonnet, on the nose cone for the bonnet to sit on. There is the bolt, the large bolt we referred to, that goes through the top of the pedal box cover and goes into the pedals. You can see we've got the inspection plate just there. That is removed to get at the inside mechanisms. We fitted a mirror onto this car. It is a sure what make it is, but it's an E-Mark mirror. So it's a Radop mirror, so that's a long established reputable firm, a Radop mirror with a spring-back mechanism that complies with the SVA regulations. If the interior mirror's got an E-Mark on it, then it'll, from your Ford Sierra, then you can use that. If you just zoom in carefully, you'll see the stone guard, how we fitted the stone guard like that, neatly all the way around. Don't forget your dummy edge finisher on the side there. The bracket, I'll show you in a little while, the special bracket we made for the exhaust, see how that's fitted. I'll show you how to make that. And then for the bonnet catchers, we've got these flaps we've made from the material that covers them up to comply with the regulations. I'll put the bonnet back on in a little while so you can see how they fit. We made covers in sheet metal to go over the side and cover them with leather cloth to finish off the cockpit sides. That's an alternative to what you've been given. If you come around the back, cameraman, you'll see we've put a strip of Sikaflex down there for the seam on the back of the wing like that. Snap-on finisher on the side of the body just there. Snap-on finisher around the dash. I'll go over that with you in a while, how that works. If you see the dashboard, we've covered it with vinyl. They're the pot noodle canister covers, lids that we've got in there like that. We've made a little cover there for the gear stick gaiter. We've made that from scrap metal. We've incorporated the heater controls, original from the Ford Sierra just there. That's the original early type gaiter for the Ford Sierra handbrake, and we've got the petrol pipe just peeking through the hole there to go to the tank. We've had to cut the binding on the carpet to go around the roll bar. Just be careful because it does fray if you're not careful. The seatbelt mountings we've got normally through the fixing at the back. That is your rear body finisher we've covered in leather cloth. That's your seat support bar. We've got the mat bag on just there behind the seats. We've painted the rollover bar with a satin finish cellulose paint. It looks like it's been powder coated. And we've nicely got the original Ford Sierra covers on these stalk controls just here. Round to the wipers again. There's the original wiper arms there, just cut short and bent just there, and that's a sub blade we've got cut in half. We've got the 2 halves just there for that. radiator. There's just room to get the cap just there. There's the overflow hose we've referred to. It goes on there. Round the front of the car, the front bumper with a gap round it, the infill panels fitted in there, snap-on edge finisher right from the back of that cross member round there, incorporated around the lamps and round the front. You need that for the SVA, and snap-on finisher on the edge of the wings for the SVA as well. I'll just pop the bonnet back on, just see how the catches work. Remember, with your bonnet, if you find your bonnet, if you find it's a bit wobbly in the middle, just bend it slightly like that. Just bend it to give it a bit of archness in the middle, and that'll help it wobbling about. And if I come around this side, you can just see I've put on one of these catches, these covers. You can see just a flat of leather cloth, cut rectangular, trapped underneath the main part of the catch, and the 4 studs that we've given you in the kit pop riveted on. I do think it would be better, instead of those studs, that you use Velcro. You could use Velcro, that would make a better job of it, and that will now comply with the SVA regulations. Remember, we've rounded off the screen, so there's not the sharp edges for the SVA, and we've got that fitting flush there, so there's not a sharp edge there, and we've rounded off the pillar all over like that, so there's no sharp edges there. Remember the demister vents, they're the 4 vents cut into pieces like that fit on top of your scuttle. The cameraman, can you just see the holes we've drilled there for the air to come through those holes, if you can just see. Windscreen washer jet just there. Okay, cut. You'll see that in my left hand we have the wiper mechanism from the Sierra. And you see in the right hand is one that we've reduced in size, so the spindles, centres are the same as the holes that you have in your scuttle. We've tacked that together, but it is possible for you just to cut it and overlap it and bolt it together with small 2BA bolts. That is the mechanism that goes underneath your scuttle. Now we have your scuttle just here. And that will go in under here. Note the fixing hole is just there, the fixing hole is just there. With those holes there, you do need to get some small strips of metal and bend them at well over 90 and fasten them onto there, so that when this does come through your scuttle, like so, when they come through, they'll go right the way through like that, and then you can actually fasten that on with another bracket at the front there. They're the fitted, so you fit them with those that fits in there, that fits in there, and the 2 fixings just there. So that's going to come through your scuttle like that. People are always worried about sealing them with from the water. We've just cut a little rubber washer that we've Sikaflexed on, that's a tight fit that stops the water going down. You can, in fact, if you wanted, put a little bit of grease around those spindles and put some Sikaflex, and then blob a Sikaflex from behind, and then push them through there as I've done now, and you will be able to have a self-seating type of seal. So we've got that like that. We've come to the heater now. This is the two parts of the heater that you recognise. That's the blower, and that is the main heater. You'll see we've cut out a little web. There's a small web between the two parts. We've cut that away. We've obviously taken off the flat mechanism. Taken that flat mechanism off, and we've taken the other adjuster off as well. When you fit on this blanking plate that's just here, you need to raise it slightly so that this flap will work. So that flap must clear. So you do need to pack that out a little bit. We've used some small strips of aluminium to pack it out so that that flap will work. So you have an existing hole already in the firewall just there. So that lower heater thing goes through there like that. That goes through there, and there is a circumference of gap all the way around that you'll manage to push the hose, the radiator hose on, and then get a Jubilee clip. Obviously the clip that goes on the top is easier to do. You will find now that when you put the scuttle back on, that the back part of this heater does encroach on the wiper. So this little bit here that doesn't do anything, you can cut that off altogether and blank that off. The same as these at the side that fall just where the firewall finishes, you can blank those off. And that then gives you sufficient air still coming out of the other pipes to duct towards your demisters and to duct towards yourself. The blower obviously sits on top of there now. That comes out. That blower sits on top of there and is bolted on through the two existing fixings like that. And then you wire up your heater and plumb up your heater just as it was wired and plumbed up in the past. It does take a little bit of doing. It is tricky. It's not easy. You do need a bit of common sense with it. Back to me again. Still on the heater and the heater area, that you will need to extend the two cables for the lever mechanisms to operate the heater, as we've done on the car that was outside. Unfortunately, the existing cables from the Ford Sierra are just a couple of inches too short. So if you're careful, you can use those cables that we've given you in the kit. Obviously, with the heater, there's lots of options to what we've suggested. There are better heaters you can buy brand new, or there's even better heaters you can get from the breaker's yard. So with the heater, remember for the SBA regulations, you've got to have a good system that does demist the screen. So you could look a little bit further afield than what we've given you, what we've suggested. The fuse box will go into that hole on the side, just here. It is a tight fit. So if you want to reposition that somewhere else, that is a possibility. On this dashboard, you'll see that these corners of the dashboard has been turned over. So that is something that you will have to do on your kit. So you do need to clamp two bits of angle section up onto the side of that and carefully tap those over so they're not sticking out. The rest of it you can put on a snap-on finisher to make it safe. Remember, you also need to make sure there's nothing under the dashboard that sticks out that could injure you in the event of an accident. Cut. You're given this length of aluminium angle. You need this to fit on top of the dashboard like so, to extend the area that you'll snap on the cockpit edge finisher. So this, if you make some incisions in the end like that on both ends, cut with a hacksaw, prop rivet that on, then you can bend those round to meet this material that is protruding just there. Then obviously the leather cloth can go up to that, and then you can then cover the edge with leather cloth and then snap the cockpit finisher over the edge of the dashboard to make it safe. We get various questions asked about the infill panels. So on the Robin Hood there are two main infill panels, two sets of infill panels. So one, the most important one, is the panel that fits, goes on top of here and fits up to the side of the body. It is only a cosmetic panel, it's not really structural. You might have to bend it, tweak it a little bit to get it to fit. It bolts on top of there, or pop rivets on top of that, and presses up to the side. It's the same on both sides. You will just have to bend that over just there to get the panel to fit. And at the ends you may need a little bit of persuasion to get it to fit perfect. You can Sikaflex it onto the body just here with ordinary Sikaflex or silicone sealer to stop any water coming through. The same with the panels that fit down here. Those are infill panels that cover up the suspension down here. They're the things that look like lean-to sheds. On the same subject, you've got a gap just here at the back, and on the same subject you've got gaps up in these top corners just here where your brake pipes and wiring goes through. Now it is a good idea to make sure the car is drag proof and weatherproof, and with all these gaps, if they are relatively small then you can fill them with a silicone sealer. If they're a little bit bigger you can use the type of material that they squirt into cavity walls. That comes in an aerosol, you can use that. Or what we usually do, we get some ordinary foam rubber and we just coat it with glue and pop that in the hole, and that fills the hole and it stops the weather coming through. Cut. On the list I've got written the third seat belt fixing. So as you know, you get the angle section that goes underneath the back for the back seat belt fixing. You get the small plate that goes underneath the floor through these pickup points for the body jig. So that's the second one. The third one is obviously through this plate. As you know, that goes like that on the floor. And then you've got your main fixing that goes through your original subframe rubber bush. And then you've got this hole here, which is a supplementary hole that you've got to drill yourself. That is quite an important hole. That's the one that you put the 40mm by 12mm bolt through. Remember, you're going to drill that. When you do drill it towards the back of the hole rather than the front. People have complained that it's very close to the rubber mounting. Just watch your drill doesn't move forward. And anyway, it's through this plate here that you can drill the third hole for the seatbelt pickup. So just do it on the edge of the seat. Once you've got your seat there, drill through that, and that's a substantial pickup for the seatbelt. While I'm here, we've got the handbrake, just in case it wasn't explained to you. The handbrake, very cleverly, we've got the handbrake cut out already there. There's a funny slot there. This is because in order to get the handbrake to sit lower than normal, so it's not sticking up when you're driving, it means that this front fixing of the handbrake actually goes underneath the floor like that. So that goes lower down like that, you can see, so that it sits down flusher. Obviously, it does mean between the underneath of that and the top of that, you've got to space that out with washers. That's pretty obvious. Just one other point, people have asked about the anti-roll bar fixing. To get back to that, so if you remember, we talked about, just to recap, we said the track control arm must be in a natural position. You just come around this side, cameraman. The track control arm must be in a natural position. This is loose actually, but it's got to be, once it's tightened up, it's got to be in a natural position like that. You offer the roll bar, anti-roll bar up, and that goes underneath the body. That's the rubber block that goes on it, obviously, and you'll find that when that's on like that, it doesn't reach, but that's an exaggeration, it's worse than what it really is. So when that's on, that doesn't reach the body, there's a gap there underneath. Obviously you just put the bolts in and pull it all up tight, it compresses that, and that's correct. Got right. When I was outside I mentioned the exhaust bracket, the one you've got to make yourself to supplement the two rubber bobbins that's come from a Rover SD1 cross member. that's the bracket, the type of bracket that you'll make. That is the bracket, a flat bracket, something like that. It's about 8 inches long, 1.5 inches wide, and we've drilled it like that. The 2 bobbins go through there and through there, and then that folds back on itself. I'll try to bend it, I don't know whether I will. That goes back on itself. Yes, I can do that. That goes back on itself to bolt onto the body. Very rough this is. So that forms something forms a bracket very roughly like that, that will bolt flat onto the side of the body like that, and then the 2 bobbins will come off it to pick up the exhaust. Right, we're nearing towards the end of all the queries that you've sent in. People have asked about the trimming of the luggage compartment. I'm not going to cover that because that is common sense. You've got the carpet, it's pre-cut, it's nearly all done for you. If we give you too much information, it'll be too easy for you, you'll get the kit done too quickly. And you're back under your wife's feet again, so I won't bother with that. The Weber carburettor, yes, you can fit twin Webers. Make sure that that's twin side draft Webers. Make sure that you do buy the very shortest inlet manifold that you can. There is one that's shorter than all the rest, and you'll find that your carburettors will come in more or less in line with this box section at the side. There isn't room for a big filter on it. You will get a slim filter, or you will get 4 ram pipes. Windscreen measurements, that's a good one to remember now. We've had lots of people ask about the exact position of the windscreen. Basically, the windscreen is limited as it must be fixed between the hole there and the demister vents. If we look at a completed car we have, there's an Exmo that we'll have to look at that's got a hood on, then you'll see that from the front of the firewall, the front of the scuttle to the back of the scuttle, it sits more or less halfway. Now, it isn't too critical, the actual position of the windscreen, because the hood is quite forgiving. When you fit the hood, depending on where you fit these rails, then there is lots of room there to take it off. But if you remember the instructions that we gave you when you fitted your windscreen, was around here, Andrew, is that you must push your windscreen backward so that the bottom curve of the windscreen fills the scuttle. So if you look behind this, if you can just jet in, this is a good example here, if you just jet in just here, Andrew, you can see that those curves there nicely fill the scuttle out. And remember, you've got this opportunity of pushing the scuttle from underneath so that this gap along there is non-existent. So you can prop up from underneath, the scuttle from underneath, and push that up to fill that gap in nicely. Just while we're here with regards to the hood, you've all had hoods in the kit, so it's no good in trying to sell you another hood. That's a hood, quite easy to fit. Remember, you want your fixers on the front windscreen first, you're pulling your hood back, and don't forget your line along the back of the car like that, so that you've got the hood fixings level. You're pulling your hood down tight, you're sticking it with lots of sticky tape, you're making sure that all these measurements are the same, you're sticking it with sticky tape, and then you're drilling through each of those holes, temporarily putting a self-tapping screw to hold it while you drill them all in before you put all the fasteners on. And then you've got the lift-off hinges on your side screens. You've got the female bit goes onto the screen like that, and the male bit that goes onto the side screen. And then there's a Velcro fastener at the top there, and you need something like that on the corner. I think you get these in it to fasten it down in the corner. Generally speaking, the hoods are easier to fit now than what they've ever been, and they do fit quite well. Ideally, you do need to make sure you do it on a warm day and that you pull it down tight, and then you can just adjust the hood frame up like that to get it really nice and tight like that. Make it look like a really well-fitting garment, and it does look quite attractive. think that's right. This is about the end of this video now. I'm sorry it's been a bit late for some people, some of the points, but I'm sure it'll help most people. Just to finalise now, remember why you're building Robin Hood: to be safe with everything you do, be really careful. Remember there's a strip of metal you need to remove that goes behind the heater, so it's left in for construction. You cut that out. Those of you who are fitting the shock absorbers, the rear shock absorbers, it's got the 1/2 inch bolt in the bottom. You do need to enlarge that hole for the 1/2 inch bolt to go through in the rear trailing arm. Don't drill it out, carefully file it out with a file, but take the material away from the lower section of the hole rather than all the way round. So that's the lower section of the hole. With this video we are sending you some foam material for your dashboard, and we are sending you some spacing washers needed for the shock absorbers. Thank you again. Anything you need to know, contact me. A postcard's the really best thing, but if you want to ring, then myself or Gina should be able to help you on the phone. Thank you very much. See you at one of the many kit car shows this year that's left. Bye-bye.